Welcome back to the Learn with Service Python Foundation series. So in the previous lessons, we have explored list, which was a flexible and powerful way to store a collection of items. But what if we need a list of items that should never change at all? I want it immutable. So that's where tuples come in. So in this session, we'll learn what a tuple is, how they are different from list, when and why to use them, and how to access and manipulate the tuple data. So what is a tuple? So tuple is an ordered, immutable collection of elements. What does that mean? Once created, you cannot modify the values inside a tuple. No adding, removing, or changing items. So think of it, like a read-only list. Now, what is a tuple syntax? So let me store it in a variable name. My tuple is equal to item 1, item 2, item 3. This is syntax. This is tuple syntax. And let's store different colors in the variable colors. Red, green, blue. Right, so these are the different colors. Now if I have to call these colors of 0, I'm able to retrieve from the index. So what is important to note here? The tuple is an ordered. That means it has an index values. Indexes are assigned to the tuple values. It's immutable. Let's take an example to showcase immutability. Now, colors, I'm going to give it as violet. Now this is throwing me a type error. Tuple object does not support an item assignment. So when I've given colors of 0, violet, right? So you can see that the tuple object does not support an item object. So you can see it is ordered, indexed, immutable, and you cannot modify the values inside a tuple. No adding, removing, or changing values. Right? So and does tuple allow for duplicates? Let's check that. Red. Let's print colors. Right? So you can see clearly that the tuples allows duplicates. However, and data type like set does not allow for duplicates. Right? So these are ordered. This allows duplicates, and the indexing is also allowed. Is it changeable? Right? So can I change and specific value in a tuple? No, it's not possible. It's immutable. Right? So we have seen how to create a tuple. Now, in a tuple, I can create a mixed data type. Say for example, Sarvesh is a string, 34 is an integer, and true is a boolean. Now when I print person, so you can see Sarvesh 34 true, right? So that means it can accept mixed data types into a single tuple, right? So this is a string, this is an integer, this is a boolean. Like if you want, you can add and float as well, right? So whatever the different data types, you can add here, right? So we have one special syntax. If I have only one tuple element, right? So if I have only one tuple element, right? So I'm going to name it as single element is equal to, I'll say it as apple, comma, right? So apple, comma. Now if I say print single element, right? So apple, comma, right? So whenever there is a single element, right? So you can, if you add it as a comma, it will return it as a tuple. Now let us create single element without comma, right? So I'm going to give it as cherry. right? Now it will accept, it will run. Now if I print a single element without comma, it will return it as a string rather than returning it as a tuple, right? So if you want a tuple to be returned back as a tuple for a single element, you'll have to give a comma in it. So this is a special syntax whenever there is one single element that's present. That's the speciality here, right? So how can I access the tuple elements? The same slicing concepts can be applied here, right? So when I've given colors, right, colors 0 to 2, right? So the red, green. The first is inclusive, the last is exclusive. What does exclusivity means? 2 minus 1, 1. Therefore, red and green. Index value 0 and index value 1 is collected from this, right? So the same slicing concept that we have seen, you can see it here as well, right? So now let's look at few tuple methods like we have seen for the list. What are some tuple methods? Count, right? So count is very interesting method. So what is this count? This is going to count the number of occurrences that's present in the tuple. So numbers is equal to 1, 2, 3, 2, 2. Right? Now I'm going to print numbers dot count 2. Right? So I'm going to count the number 2. Number of times the number 2 is present in this variable nums and run this. So the number 2 is present 3 times in this variable nums. Right? So that's what this count method within this tuple. Now let's look for index. What does this index method do? Right? This is going to find the index of a value. Right? So it's going to find the index of a value. Now say for example, nums dot index of 3. Index of 3 is going to be 0, 1 and 2. Now there could be a question, right? So what happens if I'm going to give an index of 2? Because there are 3 occurrences. When I give nums dot index of 2, it's going to retrieve the first time that number is present. First time that index is present. Nums dot index of 2, so it's present in this index 1. So therefore 0 and 1. Right? So it's present in this index 1. Right? Now what happens if I have to loop through the tuples? How will I loop through the different tuples? Right? So let's add a loop through the tuples. Now how will I loop through the tuples? Now let's print fruits. How many fruits are present? Okay, fruits are not defined. Now let's create a tuple fruits, apple, banana, cherry, right? So and right, so let's create this. Now how will I loop through it? Like any for loop, right? So we can write for fruit in fruits print fruit. So whatever the elements that's present within this tuple, I can iterate. So the looping through the loops is easy, right? So these are the basic concepts. Now what happens if I have to pack, right? So what is the tuple packing and unpacking? How will I tuple pack and unpack the tuple? Now if I'm going to give the person Sarvesh, age 34, and I'm going to say I'm from India. Right? So I've packed, right? So all these things are present in this variable name person. If at all I have to store it into various different variables, right? So name, comma, age, comma, country is equal to, if I give this person. Now let's print name, age, country, right? So you can clearly see that it has extracted the tuple into three different variables, right? So you can print name alone separately. So the name, age, right? So the country. So all these values are stored, right, in an independent variables. So this is what you call it as a tuple unpacking. So you use a tuple when the data shouldn't change. You're going to use a tuple when you want faster performance than in list, right? So tuples are slightly faster in comparison to list, right? So the performance, the performance you can look at it, significantly when you are doing it at many in a millions of data, right? So that will definitely impact when you are using it as a dictionary key, right? So we'll see that how will we use it as a dictionary key. I'll use it as a dictionary key because I don't want to edit the values that's present in the dictionary, right? So when you are working with coordinates, when I'm working with RGB data, when I'm working with fixed data sets where the element should not be changed, I'll use tuples. Now we are coming to the end of this tuple session. Now let's create what? Let's create it. Let's make it as a mini challenge. Mini challenge for the learners. For you guys. Now let's make it as, let's give some tasks, na? So you'll understand. Now create a tuple with 5 cities and then print the second and the fourth city, right? So unpack the tuple into variables. Now try changing one element, right? So what is the error that it show, right? So um, simply observe, right? Simply observe the error, right? So there's a simple task, right? So uh, we are coming close, right? So in this session you learned about tuples, how they differ from list and when it makes sense to them. Now in the next session we'll explore another type of collection or data type called as sets. So what is in sets? Where uniqueness is the rule and order is not guaranteed, right? So we'll understand more about sets in the forthcoming session. Thank you.